Hi, everyone. This is Mako Fujimura. I'm my studio in Princeton. I'm with Julia Hendrickson, her studio in Pasadena, and we're here for International Arts Movement Culture Care. I am Culture Care's belonging conversation.
It's good to see you, Mako.
Hey, Julia. So
Welcome to everybody listening.
I know. So I'm gonna show you something, and then obviously people just listening on the podcast wouldn't know, so I'll explain it. But I just got this in the mail. It's this amazing watercolor book. It's like a long, elongated book. It got a little dirty here, but and I started painting this already, Julia. I'm so excited. Look at this.
It looks
Um,
so beautiful.
so what happened was it's this long watercolor. There's a all really nice watercolor paper, and this book is made by your dad. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
So tell me how this came about because it's just beautiful. Look at the front cover, and each page is this thick watercolor paper, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really special objects. My father got into bookbinding
Yeah.
a while ago. If you
Wow.
look on the first white page, it will
Yeah.
have an initial and a number. So
Yes.
it's
Yes, I
probably number
noticed that. Oh,
130
this got the
something.
respect, but yes. Okay. I did see a number here somewhere. Can't find. Oh, yes. This is what it says
T.
10,000. It says
That's an
10419.
inventory number on the paper that he chooses not to erase because it affects the
Oh,
paper.
right.
If if you go,
1002 in
it's
the
probably
beginning.
book number 134 to 136 is the
I
edition that
see.
you're
Okay.
in.
I saw a number inside somewhere, but I can't find it right now, but I'll look
That's
for it.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, I should have grabbed mine,
That's
but
okay.
he's developed this style. It's about 5.5 by 15 inches.
Mhm.
Because that's a full folded sheet of
Yeah.
Reeves BFK paper, which is a printmaking
Okay.
paper.
Yeah.
And it's so
Okay.
special because it's 100% cotton mold made
Right.
paper that has a fair amount of sizing in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of the materials on top react differently. But
Yeah.
he's really perfected and honed his craft of bookbinding.
Yeah.
And it's a way that we've been able to collaborate together. And now he
Yeah.
offers them periodically for other people to acquire and make their
And you, you
offerings
you
in.
can you can literally buy this on your website, right? This
Yeah.
is on
They're
sale.
currently sold out, but he's making more.
Because people like me.
Yeah, because
Um,
they take time to make. It takes time
I
to
know.
fold all of that paper, to stitch
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
inside. There's so much in the book that
Yeah.
you don't even
You can
see.
see the stitching here. It bled in, which I love,
Yes.
And so Julia, what happened was I was with a medical doctor. His name is David Menomed, whose mother is a fairly well-known artist, and I happened to got to know her work because Hajin and I saw this exhibit, a Mopath Gallery in Hopewell, New Jersey, very good gallery and friend of ours, and we fell in love with one of the paintings, so we decided to purchase that, and then David, she is no longer with us, and David manages her paintings, and he found out that we purchased this and put it in our estuary gallery in Fort Lee, New Jersey, where your book that is as well. And so he was curious about us, so he came all the way up to Fort Lee to see us, and he told us a story. He gave us a gift and told us a story of how he has a house in Mexico, and this little town has these cochineal factories still, these old ways of making this ink from little beetle insects that grows on cactuses. And so this is a dried cochineal, which I have used in Japan. This is part of Nihonga tradition to use natural dyes, and so I remember the pigment shop owner telling me about this and how to use this. And one of the techniques that I learned because of overlap in Nihonga was to either combine or lay down oyster shell, which you helped me to make in the studio, uh, on a paper, typically washi or Japanese paper. But so I tried it on this. At first, I just did the ink, and then I think on this page I laid the oyster shell first, and look at the nice patterns that creates.
So
And
beautiful.
yeah, and so this is just like, meant to be like, just a journey, kind of a booklet. It's almost like a sketchbook but I'm just gonna base it on cochineal, few materials, limited to few materials, and see what happens.
I love that the book itself is that collaborative community, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's
Yeah,
all these different parts
yeah,
of your life. You're the axis
yeah,
spinning it all and putting it all together, but
yeah.
it's community in a book.
I know, and your father is part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool,
An
and
Anglican priest in South Carolina is making sketchbooks for artists.
that is so amazing, and I love that. That's culture care, right? We are just like, Nihonga is part of an ecosystem of artisans and generations of people who, dedicated their lives to creating paper. Here we want to cultivate this kind of art that is more connected with communities and nature, and rather than just saying, art is all about our ego, self-expression.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I love about the sketchbooks is that they do offer that other space for very
Mhm.
focused expression.
Yeah.
Like you feel like, yes, I should just explore one color here or
Mhm.
just one
Mhm.
style of
Mhm.
brushwork.
Mhm.
That's how I found myself most frequently working through
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And something about that format also lends itself to that.
Yeah.
And you, I learned so much working in that way as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting because when I got the book and I was looking at it, admiring it, and almost feels like it's too precious to paint on it, right? And then, but then artists are used to that feeling of facing the threshold, that compels us to make something, dare to make something, despite the fact that it's so pristine and beautiful and perfect, right? The freshly stretched canvas, or even print paper, soaked in water, ready to go. That kind of feel. You get used to having that in front of you, but this book felt so special, especially knowing a little bit about the background of it, um, and your father had attached a little note, and so I was thinking about it, and what's the best way to honor this material and the story behind it. And it just happened that David came with this gift because of his mother's paintings, right? We were connected. And it turns out that he, as a medical doctor, and studied the sciences, and my father's I have been thinking a lot about my father because of Fujimura Institute archives being now taken up by University of Oklahoma history archiving, and which is an amazing, thing. And uh, the box were being shipped, and I was thinking about that, and And then David's story of his mother and the community that his mother created right nearby, actually. And Toshiko Takayasu. Takayasu was, this remarkable ceramicist in Quakertown, and Leanne Melamed befriended her, and he, the son, sent me photographs of them having dinner together, in the studio, and it just felt like the conversation was just like the ones that I grew up in, which is my father inviting his scientist friend in Bell Labs community in Murray Hill, and having all these conversations, from music to art to sciences, and um, so when I thought about how to honor this book, I wanted to, it occurred to me that these materials, right, Kachniyo and tradition, is an ideal way, to, like, materials can speak on their own. So I need to get out of the way. I feel like, let them speak and see what they show. And just in a few pages that I've done, it's amazing the surprises that you get, right? That it's a very simple idea of spreading ink and oyster shell sometimes, letting it dry, and then, you can do certain things while it's drying. The the book form also creates, like, it's not flat surface, right? So there's kind of like
Rivulets.
yeah, and then, right, then the middle part, it's, draws water, right? So that to me immediately was a fascination. Like, it would probably frustrate a watercolor, like a realist, because it's not even, so you have to kind of work around it. I mean, the surface is curved.
Yeah.
But to me, that's like a discovery. Like, wow, there's something that can happen.
It's like running into a friend on the playground.
Yeah, it's like a unique set of circumstances, right? And depending on the moisture level, it's
Yep.
going to do different things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so fun, and it creates that opportunity for something else,
Yeah. Yeah.
because at this point you know how your material is going to respond in a specific set of circumstances, right?
Right. Right.
And then this introduces that element of unexpected.
Right. Right. It's like a
And you're coming
game.
to learn
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
know it and kind of expect it, but it's still unknown and nebulous. And especially as you work your way through the book
Yes.
and more pages experience
Yeah.
that wet and dry and
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
modeling that happens as a
Right.
result,
Yeah.
then as you flip to the next page, you're dealing with increased topography.
Yes. That's right. Yeah. And one page can lead to another. There's a narrative,
Yes.
because it's a book, right? And even if you don't write anything in it, there's a visual narrative that flows. And so in my case, I'm drawing the horizon slightly above each other. So eventually it keeps going up, graduating. and hopefully at the end, the horizon line will be completely gone. But I just think, what a wonderful way to um, share, kind of like creating a community. Even though I have never met your father, I feel like I'm connected, right, by working on this piece. And it's such a, you know, I mean, this weekend was Father's Day, and you think about what is the connection, especially perhaps parents who saw their children become artists, like things that they had to worry about, and and I told this story at the commencement speech at your alma mater, um, Golden College. But my father was nothing but encouraging. When I told him I'm gonna try to be an artist, and that kind of memory is so precious. So this project is all about reconnecting, the dots. And so thank you for the
Yeah. And my father too has been nothing but encouraging about my art, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
he,
that's amazing.
and it's such a gift.
Yeah.
I don't, I call my parents my patron parents because they support the work, right? Like
Uh,
they are the
yeah,
ultimate patrons of the arts
yeah. And how,
because they're
yeah.
there encouraging it all along.
And how amazing is the fact that your father is now part of it, like literally part of it.
It's really special.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's
Wow.
a really unique
Yeah,
collaboration and opportunity.
yeah.
And I also want to acknowledge my parents are both makers. Like
Yes.
they are committed to craft
Mm-hmm.
in profound ways. My mother
Mm.
um knows how to make any article of clothing. And also I remember when I was in high school, she went and she took me with her to a plein air watercolor class.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
that was my first like
Yeah.
outside of
Wonderful.
school
Yeah.
experience with a watercolor class, but she paints beautiful watercolor landscapes
Yeah, I bet.
that are
Yeah. Yeah.
profound.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and they walk a very fine line between realistic and abstract,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're incredibly skillful use of color. And
Yeah.
so there's that historic um
Yeah. Wow.
artistic tradition.
Yeah.
And then my dad, even his business of when I was young, of being in highway heavy construction,
Mm-hmm. I
that
know.
is a craft and that is
Yeah.
materiality.
Right.
And now theology, and he's been an ordained minister 20
Yeah.
years,
Wow.
um, and also working with paper. And
Yeah.
even when he was still in business, I remember him being on the phone and doodling.
Yeah.
Like he also does these doodles and these drawings, and
Yeah.
he's into doing Celtic crosses
Wow.
and that kind of line
Yeah.
work
Yeah. Yeah.
and traditional calligraphy. Like
Yeah.
that's his normal handwriting. He can write
Wow.
in standard architect like
Yeah.
print, but he also does the calligraphy and writing with a chisel tip and like
Right.
hones that craft
Right.
as well. And
Wow.
so being the child of people that are focused and
Mm-hmm.
attuned
Mm-hmm.
to a visual aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
and that care about the history of where where humanity has been in
Yeah.
terms of expression
Yeah. Yeah.
connects you differently to contemporary culture.
Yeah. And that's so interesting because we think of art as disconnected from life, like art is kind of esoteric, these activities that few people, you know, um, get to do. And like those of us who are full-time artists are kind of crazy, to think that we can do this full time. And but it's all connected, right? That there's a connection between your father's work to pave the road or lay down uh, the material for highways and the careful work of creating a book like this. I mean, it's all connected, you know, and we tend to separate things, as useful and perhaps art that is non-utilitarian, and non-transactional, right? And and this gets into a lot of thoughts about, well, creating a book like this, what does it do? It kind of creates an opportunity for transaction to, but not transaction for transaction's sake, because you're supporting each other, right? In some ways, the small ways, but and then the object itself carries that resonance of relationships, and oh, this is not just something I ordered on Amazon. There's history, there's story, and that's kind of like the Nihonga, ethos is, you don't just go to, like, a lot of people ask me to teach Nihonga, like, teach me Nihonga, can you teach me Nihonga? And I was like, well, actually, you kind of have to go to Japan to be introduced to these people that I've come to love, and they care for you, they think about you during the pandemic. I got notes from paper makers, pigment shop owners, silk makers, just checking in, and also, I was curious about what they were making during the shutdown, and then there's this relationship that's built over the years, and surely there is transactions happening, like I buy paper from paper makers, but it's really more like creating an ecosystem of beauty, creating beauty together, um, which is really different from isolated, individualistic kind of Western way that we have come to accept as where we create art.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. And even in the book that you're now working in,
Mm-hmm.
it, I, my father and I went back and forth, book after book, on adjusting the binding
Oh,
so that it
interesting.
would withstand the amount
Yeah.
of water that I typically put into a book.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can see how that's critical. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
those relational details. Because you
Yes.
could commission somebody to make you a book and they'll make you one
That's right. Yeah.
and it'll be good,
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
but will it be nuanced?
Right. Yes.
Will it be
And
specific?
even right, even like the imperfections of it, right? It's part of the relationship. I don't want it to be, perfect, because
No.
it that's the surprise, is when something is handmade, right? There's immaculate, the purpose of making something industrial, which is to make it immaculate as possible, right? So people buy and they get what they, think they're buying. But in this case, I'm looking for immaculate. I'm looking for something that is specifically imperfect to your
Yes.
father's making.
Yeah.
And I want to know, like, what that will ignite in me, right? As a response mechanism. It's like jazz,
Mhm.
one person plays a note and another person is responding, not just that note, but the person and how the note was played, and what the audience is like, and everything matters, because you're creating resonance. And as we know in choir,
Mhm.
if you have perfect pitch in all of the singers, it doesn't sound good. It's so interesting to think about. Like somehow, somewhere, like Gregorian chant discovered this, like, some brother cannot sing, and that's good because it creates this resonance, right? But
And
I
therefore, there's room for the rest of us to sing.
oh, absolutely. And so again, going back to, like, it's like it requires all of us, right? Those everybody is on a journey, and if you move away from this industrial, just transaction only universe, to more of a communal, caring about each other kind of a thing, then our art becomes a little bit like that, right? It kind of can move into more social dimension or more thoughts about, what is imperfect and how do we as artists, create beauty out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is part of our liturgy, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And liturgy takes that into account in a way. I mean, it's liturgy is created for, in a church in particular, liturgy is created for community. But even if you bring liturgy, the word liturgy, into conventional everyday terms, right? Like everybody has a liturgy of some kind, we prepare a meal a certain way, or we, look forward to Sunday football in a certain way. Like there's a ritual. And what is that? That kind of invites participation and really awareness of being present in certain activity, and we can do it also, we can bring others into that, right? And so there's a rhythm, and it is purposeful, but at the same time, maybe what endures or what we remember is not necessarily the thing itself, but what comes out of it, the discoveries that we make.
Yeah. And that's why we keep having these conversations, right? Because
Mhm.
this is part of our communal liturgy. And
Yes,
it's also an invitation
yes,
to anybody that's listening, watching,
yes,
to participate in generative vocabulary
yes,
and in noticing how planting gladiola bulbs is an
yes.
act of liturgy, how utilizing materials from people that you've encountered in your life
Hmm.
is liturgy,
Hmm.
connecting the stories
Yeah.
is part of
So,
that generative work of culture care.
yeah, so good. I'm so excited because the gladiolas have come out. The leaves have come out. The flowers are not there yet, thankfully, because I want to kind of treasure it, and for those of you listening who don't know the background of this, that was my Lenten resolution was to plant 50 gladiolus bulbs, and I planted 100 of them. So there's a lot of gladiolas here around the studio. It's just going to explode one day. And then, of course, I want to paint them, I want to create art. And um, so even in what I just described, there's this movement from darkness to light, right? That you're in cold ground, you're burying bulbs, and then it will come out in May, June, and then it'll flower in the summer. And part of what we get to do as artists is to stay with it, right? And not just when the flowers are beautiful, but then we get to paint that, and continue that, right? So I feel like that's now my regular, liturgical liturgy. This is my liturgy is trying to think about seasonal cycles, because flowers, plants, and if you're gardening or anything like that, you realize like, oh, there's a cycle that I have to be aware of. If I don't plant tulip bulbs in November, it's not going to come up because they have to winter, to root. And so many things about nature teaches us to create that rhythm in and out. And going back to communities, this is exactly the kind of rhythm that we need to create with each other, because none of us are in the same rhythm, right? There are some people who are having huge challenges right now, right? That they're faced with impossible situations, and those in war zones, children, trapped in those situations, to just in general. And then the those of us in the studio trying to create beauty, there are those of us who having something to celebrate, like a graduation. um, and these overlaps, I really think it's like a choir singing. If we can give praise in each moment, even in the darkness, even when we are struggling, um, there's some ways that community can bring that into resonance, and I don't know how that what that would look like in terms of this conversation and the cultural care movement, but maybe that's what we are trying to do, is invite everybody to be on that journey, and find somebody local, if not father and daughter, then a friend who can journey with you, to create that rhythm together.
Yeah. Here's to more making.
Yes, the
Here's to
homemaker.
finding other creative collaborative partners,
Yes,
even in places that are dark.
I know.
Like the bulb is still growing, is
Yeah,
still doing vital work
yeah,
in the dark. Even
yeah,
when it seems like it's alone, it's collaborating
yeah.
with the soil and with its internal resources.
Yes. And even if you're doing something completely not art, like
Yes,
pouring concrete into the ground to pave the road,
yes.
that is
Asphalt,
connected, right? That is
it is.
it's right here. It's in this book. It's all here, and I'm just so happy that I get to do this.
It's really exciting to see
Yeah,
that collaboration happening.
I know. So
So
I'm looking
cool.
forward to just working on it little at a time, and we'll report to you from Estuary Gallery when who
So good.
knows. Good to see you, and good,
Good to see you,
to have this
Mako. Take care.
conversation. Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.